Hi, I'm Joan McCrum from the Society's Children's Writers and Illustrators group, and welcome to the second SOA at Home Festival. Our autumn-winter season runs until 10th of December. Most events are free, but if you can afford to, please consider donating at least £5 to our Authors Contingency Fund. The link is in the chat bar. We also have a virtual Blackwell store featuring books by our speakers, and if you follow the link and make a purchase from there, then a percentage of that sale will go towards the fund. Some housekeeping for newbies. We can't see you, but you can post questions in the chat bar on the right. Some of you might experience buffering. It might just be you. Don't panic. Press the reconnect button above or log in and log back out again and you'll be fine. We're actually recording this and it's going to be on Vimeo in a week as well. So you're absolutely not going to miss anything. There's no comfort break today and we finish around 3 p.m. At about 2:40, we're going to take that's going to be a dedicated bit for your questions, but you can post questions all the way through and Sarah might take those up. So the afternoon features Dapo Adeola, Ken Wilson-Max and Sarah McIntyre. And we're going to discuss the publishing industry from the perspective of an illustrator, the challenges they face from signing a book contract all the way through to dealing with those fearsome year sevens. We're going to look at editorial decisions, relationships with writers, publishers and booksellers, and how to reach out to readers and new audiences. Chairing the session, Sarah McIntyre. She illustrates and writes picture books, including The Grumpy Corn, and co-authors longer, highly illustrated books with Philip Reeve, including Oliver and the Seawigs. With James Mayhew, she set up Pictures Means Business in 2015, showing people how everyone benefits when illustrators are credited for their work. Dapo Adeola is an award-winning illustrator and designer. He co-created and illustrated the picture book series Look Up with Nathan Brown, as well as other upcoming titles with Macmillan and Bloomsbury. He also works with various publishers on events promoting a career in illustration to underrepresented members of the Black diaspora. Ken Wilson-Max, is the author of Astro Girl, more than 70 other books for young children published all over the world. Ken is also publisher at Lana Max, an award-winning independent publisher. And I think you're probably going to get a few submissions today, Ken. I'm just going to warn you there. But I'm now going to say goodbye. I'm going to log out and hand you over to the experts. I'll be back at the end. But for now, Sarah, the control is all yours.
Thank
over
you.
To you.
Hi, everyone. It's great that you could join us. And we're really pleased just to be able to talk about illustration with you guys. And if you have any questions, we're going to have a question time at the end, sort of the last 20 minutes. But be asking and commenting if you want during the talk, and it might help kind of stimulate what we're talking about or anything. But first, I want Ken and Dapo to just kind of talk about what they're doing, what they're currently working on, maybe flash a few of their books around so we can see them sort of like that. So things you work on. Sorry, Dapo. Go.
I'll go first. Hi, everyone. My name is Dapo Adeola. I am the illustrator of the Look Up book series. That's probably what everyone probably knows me for. I'm also an illustrator of some fiction series as well. I'm working on a series with Bloomsbury at the moment called Space Detectives, which was announced the other day. It's written by Mark Powers, and it's an awesome series. And I'm also quite well known for this series, which is from Versafire, a publisher in America, and it's called The Last Day of Summer, and it's written by Lamar Giles. So yeah, that's what I do. I'm relatively new to the industry. This is like my second year working as an illustrator in children's publishing. I'm also self-taught. It's been a pretty long journey to get here. It's taken me about a decade to get here, and now I'm here. Just kind of like learning everything, learning as much as I can about the industry and how things work. So yeah.
Oh, congratulations!
That's me in a nutshell. Thank you.
Shortlisted for the Carnegie today, the Greenaway. The Greenaway.
Yeah, that happened this morning as well. Yay. So we were for our second book in the Look Up series. It's called Clean Up. This book here, we were longlisted for the Kate Greenaway Medal, which is an honor, which is it's amazing. Another thing that I'm learning about in this industry is how awards work and what it means to be nominated and the history of various awards. So yeah. This is
you're doing it really well. You're going in and like winning all the awards to learn about them. So that's
them. It's bananas. Like fingers crossed we win this one. But it's a great position to be in. Second year in the industry. Again, relatively new. Like it's a great position to be in. So yeah.
Brilliant. Cool. Ken, do you want to?
Yes, Ken Wilson Max, and I'm sort of on the other scale, mid-career or further on in my career. I've been doing this since about 1994, and I've got quite a few books under my belt. I, like Dapo, started on a very sort of, hit the ground running, as they say. Became very well known in the US quite quickly, and then sort of started to work my way back into the UK, even though I hadn't been to the US. I was just well known there, and famous for books such as the Big Yellow Taxi, The Little Red Plane. One of the first black characters in the book, a boy called Max. First, it was one of the first in the US as well. And then slowly but surely have been sort of settling down into a career of just doing commissions, writing my own stuff, and trying to keep the living going. So not only making a living, but trying to keep it going, which I think it's the long haul, which is always the big challenge. Most recently, I released Astro Girl, which came out in 2017, I think, and that book's been pretty good. I think it's coincided with a greater awareness of the world and diversity and everything. So it's been good. Steam Award winner, one of the 20 best books in the US by Bank Street College. It's just been published in South Africa in four South African languages, which is so cool. I'm so happy about that. It's like it's next door to where I come from. I'm so happy. And we're working on a follow-up to that. So I'm an illustrator plus, let's put it that way, writing, publishing, and designing. Like Dapo, also mentoring and helping young or new talent into it, because it's not always young. And just hoping that this diversity conversation turns into a movement, which turns into something that brings out some fantastic books from us, of course, and from all this new crop of people.
Yeah, I'd love to see your sort of Astro Girl get together with the Girl from Look Up.
Yeah, exactly.
Crazy. Like, absolutely crazy. I think they came out at the same year as well.
Crazy.
I think,
within the first few
within like a month or two of each other.
And I was like,
yeah.
Dapo. And I called him up and I said, guess what? Look at this. You're doing a book. The same. They're in the same universe, kind of thing.
Right. And I remember saying to Ken, I was like, there's plenty of space for everyone. And I meant the pun. Like the pun was fully intended.
It's cool.
Like,
plenty of space. I must say, once upon a time, I did a book when Max came out, which was more than a decade ago. I also did a book called Dexter Gets Dressed for Kingfisher. And these two characters came out at the same time. And then the one publisher was really upset that the other book was out. And she said, there was no space for two characters that were on white in the same time period.
It must happen so.
I mean, from the same person. It's not even. But what about all these books?
Right?
Girls, little blonde girls, and fairies, and no, that's not the point.
Well, this was my point with ours, because like Sarah just said, it's common. Like when a particular like fantasy creature is the hot ticket, everyone's got a book out about this creature. Everyone's got a book out about pugs. Everyone, so it's
Narwhals, unicorns.
Right, it's common stuff. So like, why should this be any different? So that was my attitude towards it. There's plenty of space, and the more books featuring similar characters, it just gives people different things to kind of like about each title. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, your book did things our book didn't do, and our book did things that your book didn't do. So yeah, there's plenty of space
in a very interesting way.
So I think a lot of people who maybe people who want to get into publishing or have a book they've written, are trying to submit it, and they're kind of trying to look for different ways of getting into the industry. And I was just wondering, because you come from you've been in it for a while, Ken, and Dapo, you're quite new. You run a publishing house. You're representing yourself. What's sort of how did you each? What was your first break, and how did you kind of start to do this?
Dapo, do you want me to go
first? My journey was wild. Like, it was absolutely crazy. I had no intention of being here, first of all. Like, I wasn't looking to come into children's publishing the way that we ended up here. Like, Nathan is my friend, who is also the author of the Look Up series. And Nathan is I think the more, I would say the more commonly known of the two of us in terms of what he does for a living. He's a very talented screenwriter and also a brilliant actor as well. And he's been on, various shows, and people know him from Benidorm and Some Girls on the BBC. So he's the guy that people would recognize almost instantly of the two of us in the wider world. And as a result of his hard work and what he does, he was with an agency which then merged with a literary agency. And he had approached me in 2015 with an idea for this picture book. He was like, Daps, I got an idea for this character. This was my brief. He was like, she's got big hair, glasses, little black girl obsessed with space. And that was my brief. So I went away and I did my thing, did the first round of drawings for Rocket. And at this time, again, it was the character design element that I loved about this whole thing. So that was my thing. So like, I got really invested in that, built the character up as best as I could at the time. We didn't really have a story. We had an idea about what we wanted to do. So then his agency, like I said, merged with the literary agent, and he took my work to the literary arm, which is where he presented it to Sally Ann, who's now my agent. And at this time, I had no idea what it was to have an agent. My only knowledge of agents came from Jerry Maguire, and I was expecting Sally Ann to say show me the money, but she didn't say that. She never said that. But I went into.
A lot of people don't know there's a difference between illustration agents and literary agents.
Right.
It's not at all
the same thing, and it's not the same thing. So I went into her office. She asked to meet me. I went into her office. We sat down. We had a talk. She told me what she does, and she asked me if I'd like to sign. And I asked her one question. I was like, "Is it going to cost me anything?" She said, "Nope. The only time I make money is if you make money." So I was like, "I like the sound of that." So I signed up, and then we did a tighter pitch. Put a tighter pitch together with a synopsis of the story and more illustrations of the character. And then we just missed, this is 2016, we just missed Frankfurt. And again, I'm only just now in the industry learning about the importance of these festivals. So we had just missed Frankfurt, and we got everything ready in time for Bologna. And she went out to Bologna, she did her thing. And again, she's a magician. She just did her thing. And she came back and she was like, there's been some interest in your book. And I was like, oh, okay. Again, oblivious to everything. Now, my Twitter account at the time, I didn't really use Twitter that much. I got a notification that somebody from Bloomsbury was following me. And I was like, Bloomsbury? That sounds like a publisher. So I looked it up. I was like, oh, crap. So I asked her again. I was like, Sally Ann, how many people were interested in our book? And she sent me a list of about 20 odd publishers. And I did the thing that I do. I checked online, and 10 of the top 10 publishers in the world were on that list. And I was like, oh, crap, this is a bit serious. So fast forward to 2017, this was April. So fast forward to May, Nathan had a day off filming, and he came into London, and we set up a day of meetings with 6 different publishers. And I was still of the belief that we were going to go around and shop the book and, trying to convince the publishers as to why they should sign us up. No, wasn't that. They were trying to convince us as to why we should go with them. We ended the day with 3 book offers for multiple books from Hachette, Bloomsbury, I believe, and Penguin at the time. We ended the month of May with 14 offers from just different publishers, and we ended up going with Penguin. They had a big back and forth between them and Bloomsbury, but we ended up going with Penguin, and we did the book with them. And then things it still got crazier from there. This was around May 2017. So by October, an article came out that I was featured in on BuzzFeed, and it was an article about black artists to look for, to be following in the UK. And off the back of that, a whole slew of other book offers came through the door. So I guess 2017, whichever way it went, was going to be the year that things were going to shift. And it's just been a crazy journey ever since. And again, it's not for lack of me putting my work out there and being, taking those steps. But, I swear to you, I was not intending to be where I am right now at this point. So here we are. And
how to say no to stuff. It's
right. So
your career. You're like, no, I can't do everything.
Right. So here we are now. And what I have done is I've ridden the wave as much as I can. And I've tried to learn about how the various cogs in the industry work. And, just trying to be myself in a space that is just, I'm not afforded the luxury of being quiet, if that makes any sense. I'm not afforded the luxury of fading to the background. So I'm like, you know what? If I can't hide, I might as well just
Yeah, you're really bad at fading.
Terrible. I suck at that. Like, so I'm just like, let me just be myself. So here we are.
Cool. What about you, Ken? How did you sort of get into the?
I was working in publishing, so I had been designing for around about a decade, and I began to see little gaps in various age groups. Yeah. As to what was missing, and I could see what was missing was diversity, and also, let's say, more books that were boy oriented.
Okay. Were you an editor or?
No, I was a book designer.
Book designer, okay.
I'm a book designer. So I started working at Orchard Books.
Cool. Yeah, I do.
And I could see those are the two glaring things missing. And it took me a while before I figured out that actually, okay, I've got a couple of ideas. Now, I already knew how to present ideas, obviously, because I was the one who was commissioning illustrators and working with them. So I had a little bit of insider knowledge as to how to do it. But it was still very nerve-wracking. And I thought to myself, I'll give myself 6 months. I had made up little dummies. I was looking for them. I just don't have them at the moment. I had made up little sort of physical dummies. And I had these books that were about vehicles. And I thought to myself, the first thing to do is, because I knew, I had a sense that the diversity angle, to start with that, wasn't the best thing at that moment.
Right.
I knew that I needed to do something and then bring it in, if you know what I mean. That's how I thought in my head. So I decided to launch some books which had neither. They're nothing about gender, nothing about anything. They were just books about vehicles, because the vehicle is a character. And but I said what I want them to do is reflect real life, because that's a key thing to all the books that I've done since. And I had noticed that I had a niece at the time, and she used to watch her dad driving from the back seat. And I was like, I wonder what is going on in this child's mind. So that drove me on to come up with this idea of, it's a story about a taxi, and you can turn the steering wheel, you can wind up the windows, you can check the oil, you can turn the dials, all these little things that you see that you don't need to explain, but visually you can explain them. You don't have to go into it. And that one book, that one idea became 6 in a very short time. Like, wow. One idea, like just like that. But I'm going to print an idea, take the money and run, maybe. You know what I mean? I'm not intending. I just want to do it because I can see this gap.
And it makes sense because you had all the training. You already know how to put.
Yeah. And I was like thinking, I'm a bit tired anyway. I need to take a break. I was really planning to, but it turned into, when it got to the US, Scholastic, they sort of said, what about if we had a whole series of them? And I was like, what about it? You know what I mean? Not really taking it seriously. It's funny how you don't take it seriously until you kind of see all the numbers and the size and the scale of things. Because at that time, even though you're talking about companies, and they're big companies, you just don't know how big. And so it takes a while to process, I think. Anyway, so...
So did you have an agent at any point? Somebody was just asking about getting books.
I never had, in the beginning, I didn't have an agent because I knew some agents, but I just couldn't find one. And then I've only had an agent once, I think. Okay. And it wasn't, for me, it wasn't the best experience, I would say. But it wasn't bad because I knew what I wanted them to do. I was like, I've got all these books. I want to go in this direction. I want you to handle this. You know what I mean? Yeah. Don't worry about commissioning because I can get myself commissioned if I have to. But I'll ask you to do the business side of it. Because
this person's saying it's difficult to get an agent, and it's working. And of course, you can just go out and do it. You don't have to wait for.
You don't have to, but I think that was 15 years ago.
It's hard with that, though. Yeah.
Now I think that was done exactly the right thing. An agent is your team.
I sometimes think that actually the best time to get an agent is when you've just got a book deal and you haven't signed it yet, and then they're like, "Oh, you're marketable, but you haven't messed up yet." Yeah.
Well, I think also agents, most of them are editors. They've come from an editorial background. They do understand how to construct a story. They're very, very helpful in helping you shape and form this thing. But then there's a part of it that you have to have an input. You've got to understand about teamwork as well. It's a good learning curve, and it's a good place to learn. Sometimes there's nothing. You're just waiting. And other times, obviously, the phone is ringing off the hook. And this one thing about publishing where it's either or. To maintain that flat line of business and say, oh, gradually, there's no gradual. It's either like, boom, up there, and then you got to keep it, and then you take a breather, and then it'll go up again. It's a troughs and peaks sort of lifestyle.
So talk about
to sort of add to the agent conversation, look, this was the biggest learning curve for me. I'm so used to doing so many things on my own. So this whole experience working in publishing is the biggest learning curve when it comes to learning how to be patient and work with other people and how to take critique and how to kind of just not be so bullheaded. I'm a Taurus. It's just in my nature, like just boom, get it done. So learning all of that stuff was a great thing for me. With Sally Ann, we've been together for going on 4 years now, and we have both learned how to trust each other. And it's a massive thing because she's never had anybody like me on her books. So, and also coming into the industry, normally when somebody comes into the industry and they're new to the industry, they don't do some of the stuff that I do. Like they just quietly kind of take instruction until they feel a bit more confident and all the rest of it. But I was very much like, okay, I'm here now. Let's have a look around and see what's going on. And let's do a bit of that. Let's do a bit of this. So she's kind of had to keep up with me to an extent, and I will always commend her on her ability to do that, because I know what it is to have somebody not trust me, so that's something. And also when it comes to my ideas as well, she's a great first base to test everything. Like she, I trust her judgment, I trust what she sees, I trust that she can pull out things that I might not be able to see because of my experience or my lack of experience so far. So yeah, that's a boon. It's like having an extra person in your corner. That's what an agent does. And also difficult conversations that need to be had as well. She's great at that.
Oh yes.
I don't have to have the anxiety over that. Like I can just tell her what I would like and she can tell me whether it's reasonable or not, and whether, give me an expectation as to what I might get back, and then she'll go off and do it. Like,
you don't have to have those fight with your publishers. You can just say, that'll be fine, but just talk to my agent first. And then the agent says, no way.
she can be a jerk on my behalf.
Good.
Like, which is great. Like, she can be a jerk on my behalf, which is great. Like, and that's another thing, again, because, I don't know if I'm jumping into this a bit too soon, but I find that the industry has this thing that it can be a bit too polite. Like, and it's just it's stiflingly polite. Right. And I feel like that's the reason why a lot of things that need to change haven't changed, So with that, and I'm not very good at that. Like, I don't do that very well. Like if something's not working, I will say that doesn't work for me,
That's what you're doing right now with the open letter to the BBC.
Yeah.
I can't wait till that comes out.
It's been an interesting weekend. It's definitely been an interesting weekend. And it didn't, the crazy thing about that whole thing, for anyone who doesn't know,
maybe tell a little bit about.
Should I just go into it?
Yeah.
So Nathan and I won the Waterstones Children's Book Award earlier this year, and it was such a great time for both of us. The story of Look Up, and it's not a commonly known story, but Look Up is very much a co-created book. Before Nathan and I actually even got started on the actual process of making the book, we actually signed a 50-50 agreement between the two of us, right? So that we would set the sort of foundation for what was to come in terms of how we were going to collaborate. And that's the best thing that we could have done at the time, because it gave both of us freedom to have input in all areas of this book. And that's why you got the book that you got. That's why people are connecting with the book the way they're connecting with it, because it's 50% me, 50% Nathan. It's very much a co-created project. That's not the norm, and I've come to learn that. What tends to happen with books is you're presented with the text, and you choose the text. Text is already formed. Rare is it that you can change the text after you've been presented with it. Like, it's a very rare situation. So I've come to learn that what we have is very much a luxury. So anyway, book gets made, book goes out into the world, book does well, book wins award. And now it comes to time for the wider media outside of the publishing industry to report on this book. And that's when I found the bias, the author bias, started to kick in. And I'm sitting here like, wait a minute, that's not right. Like, that's not right at all. Like, the BBC would report the book. They would do an article about the book, and the article would literally be focused on Nathan as the author, Nathan as the star, in his right, absolutely in his right. But then it's a picture book, you know? Yeah, what is a picture book if not like 75% pictures, you know? So I just, the math wasn't mathing, if it makes any sense. So, you know, that was the first time it happened. And I did comment about it. And I was like, look, that's just not cool. And what they had done at the time is they hadn't asked for any words from Nathan and I. They had taken a joint interview that we did from The Guardian and literally pilfered the words from there, made their own article and put it out without either of our consent. And I say that because I know Nathan, and I know that Nathan would never condone something like that going out and just omitting and not crediting me in that way, right? Because he's very supportive. He's actually a friend of mine. So that happened the first time. And then recently I helped a producer at the BBC with a breakfast slot for Lenny Henry, where children were going to be asking Lenny questions about his book. So I got my niece and a couple of other children to ask Lenny a question. So the irony of this whole thing was that my niece asks Lenny a question about why there aren't that many black children in children's books. And Lenny uses my book, Look Up, the book I illustrated, to answer the question. And there's no credit whatsoever. It's literally Nathan Brian's book, Look Up. Nathan Brian has done this book. And I'm sitting here like, wait a minute, you're showing the pictures from this book that I drew, right? Nathan wrote it, but you're showing my work. You're not showing the words, you're showing my work. The least you could have done is had a screen credit or mention the fact that it was illustrated by me. That's the very least. I don't need to dominate the conversation, but if you're going to show my work as a significant portion of the content, mention me, credit me. It's what you do, right? So, again, very proud of my niece, because the moment was about my niece. But then, it just, as people saw it and people started to ask me and people started to express their outrage, I just thought to myself, you know what? No, this isn't cool. Because if I don't say something, it's going to keep happening. And then the minute I did say something, everybody started coming forward with their own experiences and things that have happened to them. And I just thought to myself, this can't be normalized anymore, man. It just can't be. So that's how the open letter that I'm drafting was born.
Do you ever get the sense that in this kind of push for diversity, it's like writers are considered prestigious, so people were like, yay, let's have black people be writers, but then it's like, oh, but illustrators isn't prestigious at all. Why would you even care about crediting? It's just kind of...
So this is the crazy thing that I've come to learn, right? Illustrators get a raw deal. I'm even trying to pull out a violin right now, but illustrators get a raw deal. And it's like black illustrators get a rawer deal. It's just like, what the hell? Like, come on.
Yeah, I don't know why people aren't going out of their way to, especially now with diversity being really like in the forefront. You think they make an extra effort to credit. It's very odd.
And the thing is, it could have just been like a small little thing that says illustrations by the. I would have been so cool. I don't even need my name actually verbally mentioned. Just a credit. That's it. And what can I say?
That's what
you can't do that.
Yeah, you don't have to make it the same size. It could be smaller. It just needs to be there somewhere, legible. Yeah.
Right? Like,
somebody's asking, is the BBC, is the letter still open for signatures? Are people still? So
just to give everyone who's here an idea of what's going on. So Sarah has helped me because she's amazing. She's helped me draft this letter up, helped me edit it, helped me get it right. And what we're trying to do at the moment, after I come off this, is I'm going to try and get a Google document set up so that everybody can view the letter. And if you want to, you can add your signature. I don't know how Google Documents work, but I'll figure it out. But you'll be able to add your signature to it so that when the letter goes out, it's got all the signatures and everything. So yeah, we're trying to set that up. So if you follow me on Twitter, it's at @DapStraws. If you don't, you'll see that post. That post will come up soon. So yeah.
A few people have mentioned that translators face exactly the same problem, and translators are represented by the Society of Authors too. And very often a big international book will be like forefront in the news, and there'll be no mention that actually the writer didn't write those exact words. The translator did. So it's exactly the problem. And Pictures Mean Business, there's a sister campaign called Name the Translator. So if you're interested in that, definitely look up Name the Translator, the hashtag on Twitter.
I will do because again, for me, it's just I like to know about stuff that's going on in our industry, because I feel like everybody can get credited and it shouldn't be a problem. Your contribution should be acknowledged. Yeah. So yeah, I want to know.
And also there's a huge diversity in translation because it's people who speak other languages well. So naturally it is quite diverse. Yeah. So it absolutely makes sense. Yeah.
It's not celebrated, I think. I think it's just sort of taken as a given. And that's what I feel the illustration is as well, which is just like, it's just taken as this given. And I'm sitting there like, it's really not a given. Like, I mean, this is hard work.
Yeah.
Like,
it's a very traditional publishing view, I must say. That editors,
but do you know what's crazy?
The editorial side of it dominates the book. If you see what I mean.
Right. But do you know what's crazy? It's a traditional Western publishing view, because you don't get that in Japan. You don't get that in Japan. You don't get that in the East. Their artists are actually celebrated and lauded.
Yeah.
You don't get that. It's very much here in America that you get that. It's a Western.
It's a
thing.
Western thing, for sure.
Like, it's crazy.
Sure.
You don't get that in France. Their artists are celebrated.
France is better, yeah, it's true. France, Belgium.
You know?
But then they get paid really bad in France.
There is that. I mean, it's such a profession or a community of it's layered, and what's right for one person is horrible for another person, and what is an advantage for one. You know, it's almost like you need to have. I think this is why agents are coming to their own now. I mean, you need to be able to negotiate the best deal for yourself. Mm-hmm. And I think what Dapo's trying to do is actually negotiate the best deal for everybody, which I think is point out that indifference, which I think is fantastic. Because I think you know, it is all about your negotiation. If your agent is sharp enough, if you are sharp enough in the meeting, you can get. But if you miss it, you know what I mean? It's almost like if you and I say sharp enough, but I don't mean that no one is never sharp enough. It's just like if you miss it, you miss it. You know. I think I remember looking at contracts from the US in the beginning and thinking to myself, I have to read this thing like till I understand it totally.
Yes, never said
what's in it. I don't know, you know, and you start looking at all the clauses and stuff. But after a while, when your name is a little bit more well known, I think you do get more generous offers.
Yeah.
But how that translates in publicity, I'm trying to think if I ever had a similar incident. No, I don't think I ever did. But then I write a lot of my own stuff. Mm-hmm. But yeah, whenever I'm working as a commissioned person, mm-hmm. your billing is not. It's not there. It's there.
No, we really need to work on this.
Unless the publicity department thinks they can make money out of publicizing that, that person is illustrating it. It's going to bring us another audience or whatever. Which means they have to be sharp enough as well to realize that that's an opportunity.
Well, I tell you one thing as well, though. Maybe again, okay. To be honest, right? I'm in this place now, and I'm looking at Look Up, and Look Up is a high-profile book, right? So maybe I'm speaking from a privileged place, but the one thing I can say is before Look Up was what Look Up is now. Mm-hmm. I was the same person.
Yeah.
So with our PR team, I was very much like equal billing. All the way. Good. This is an equal billing thing. Like I remember the first meeting, I'm not backwards at being forward. So it was very much like, I'm here, it's equal billing. So, and this is what I tried. We talked about mentoring people earlier. And, you know, I found myself in this position. I kind of question it all the time. Like, what do I know? But I know something, all right? So like, I find myself in this position where I'm mentoring people and I'm talking to people that are coming into the game, and I reach out to any Black illustrator that I see that's coming in and just try and say, look, if you need anything, I'm here, because that's what I would have loved for somebody to have done when I was coming in. And one thing I try to tell people all the time is you have to be your own biggest fan. Like you have to be that. You have to be that, you know, without being obnoxious, without being overly arrogant. You have to believe your source, because if you don't believe it, how can you expect anyone else to believe it?
Yeah,
you're leaving so much.
Aspiring illustrator in the bio, and you're like, no, not aspiring. You're doing pictures.
Yeah.
And I was an aspiring illustrator in my bio for about 6 years before somebody pulled me up and said, "Dude, what the hell? What are you doing?" Yeah. And it never dawned on me, and I just took it out. I thought it was cute. I thought, you know, if I put it there, it's a safety cushion, so nobody expects too much from me, right? No, the minute I took it out, it just felt right. Mm-hmm. You know, and I still consider myself to be aspiring in a lot of ways, but I'm in the industry now, so I can't use that title anymore. You know,
something about actually,
I can't use that label.
People want you to be big and amazing. Like I went to an event once where the guy spent the whole time just criticizing himself and saying how awful he was, and it felt like a big waste of money, because it's like, you know, I spent money to come and see you talk, like, not just that you. I'm saying you're awesome, so would you please give me my money's worth?
we are a pretty self-deprecating bunch.
It's boring.
As illustrators. We're a pretty self-deprecating bunch, and I've learned that. Like, you know, some of my like icons as illustrators, they talk smack about themselves. I'm like, yo, you're amazing. I've been looking at your work for like 2 decades. You're amazing. Like, how can you say that about yourself?
Awesome.
But
like if you go
I do get it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I do get it, because it's very much our critical eye, especially if you spend so much time with your own work. Like, you're looking at your work, you stop seeing what's great, you start seeing what you can fix all the time. Like, that's all you see. So it's easy for you to sort of slide into that self-deprecating space. I could tell you everything that's wrong about my work, but I just take it as a given that you see everything that's good about it. So I don't need to talk about that. I could talk about the bad stuff.
I was going to ask you, like,
you're working book to book. you're walking from book to your life is revolving around book to book to book.
Yeah.
So each book happens, you reinvent yourself, another book comes. So your life is actually in these short little cycles.
Yeah.
And so, you can always talk about what you didn't get right in the last thing. And forget to talk about what you hope to do in the next one. You know what I mean? It's one of those sort of situations.
As kind of that follows on, I was wondering if there's anything that, like, kind of mistakes that you made when you were first starting out that you would say to people, don't do what I did. You don't have to do this. Like, I guess being self-deprecating too long. That's one.
Yeah. The biggest mistake, and I'm learning from this now. The biggest mistake I made was I said yes to way too many things. I said yes to way too many books, and it was at the time. And it's an easy mistake to make, so I'm not giving myself too much of a hard time about it. I've said yes. I put my hat on. Get on with it. But I was not to know how things were going to go. So it was very much like, you know what? One book deal does not a career make. Say yes to a few more. Secure yourself. And I don't regret doing that, but it has led to me working excessively for the last 2.5 years. And I guess I've talked to various illustrators and they've all had this happen, So I guess this is my time to sort of learn that lesson of what it is to be this busy. And then having learned that lesson, I'll make smarter decisions going forward, But yeah, that is if a mistake it can be called, that's the biggest mistake that I made. Saying yes to too many things. I should have scaled it down by at least two book series less than I'm doing now would have been great. But yeah.
Gosh, yeah. Learning how to say no. What about you, Ken? What would you say?
Yeah, it's similar. I mean, at the beginning, I think I was 5 or 6 years nonstop, which was just happening. And then it slowed down and I looked up and I was like, where am I? Like, okay, I had to appreciate the initial 5-6 years and go like, God damn, I can't even remember most of these things now because it's just been absolutely non-stop. And I think the other mistake I made was not behaving enough like a self-employed, like a business. In the beginning.
What way?
So really relying too much on publishers, relying too much on 1 or 2 publishers to keep my lifestyle going, let's put it that way, rather than planning to diversify early and making some kind of a plan, which would mean, in a certain number of years, you can start doing other things just to keep everything floating. I would say that was if I look back, that would be one of the...
Was that the point when you set up a publishing company?
No, not even. I resisted setting up a publishing company for the longest time, probably about 10 years. I just said, I'm not doing it. I can see I had publishers who became friends and then they set up on their own. And I was like, they were, 20, 30 years in this business. They knew what they were doing and things would not work. You know what I mean? It wasn't down to what they knew. It was just down to the fact that it's publishing. So I just thought to myself, I'm not doing it. I don't want to be a pioneer. No, it's not going to happen. No, resist. But it stuck. It didn't go away from the back of my mind. It was always there. Like, one of these days, you have to answer this thing because, as I said earlier, I started doing books that had no diversity in them.
Right.
And then when I started working in the States, it was all about diversity at that time. But I just felt that it was just going into a big hole. Like no one knew, no one noticed.
How did you go from having an idea to actually setting up a publishing house? Like things like distribution and all these kind of things that you don't even think about when you have a publisher. I mean, you do, but like...
Yeah, I mean, well, again, because I started working on the other side of the drawing table, as it were, I had an idea of what publishing business was like. I had to do some of those technical things behind the scenes. But I think when you're running your own company, the theory and the practice, there's a gap in between them that you have to very quickly learn, and you can't do it alone, I would say. You need to have a small team. But I think it's always a question of being prepared to take it on no matter what. And I think I didn't feel I was ready until 2017 when I said, okay, you know what? I was an art director in another company, and I just thought, I can do this, man. I've got to go for it. And at that time, my book was also in print, let's say, and I was just thinking, yeah, well, I know it can go anywhere. It could be a success. It could just trickle along. Who knows?
Yeah.
If I do this, if I set up my own thing, then at least in 2 or 3 years' time, I know I'm going to have something that's a bit more solid. And I think by that time, I had learned a lot about not about diversity, but a lot about how to turn it into a business.
Okay. Yeah. Have you
Which
had more luck with sort of the standalone books or the kind of series where you feature like Lenny or Alex or somebody? Is that, have you had more sort of success with the kind of standalone books, or like Astro Girl, or the ones where you have a series based on a character?
I think by their nature, series are more, if you get them right, and if you're given enough time to get them right.
Okay.
So maybe 1 or 2 books, let's say.
Yeah.
But after your first one, if you're given a chance to adjust and keep going, fine. But I have worked on series where the whole thing was very ambitious from the publisher, and you started, and both parties realized that this is way too ambitious. What are we going to do? How are we going to fix it? And then they just said, no, it's okay. We're not going to do that. And you think, yeah, but I've still got all these ideas.
Yeah.
So, I think by their nature, series are more of a long-term play.
Okay.
And I still think of series as being 4 books or 8 books or 12 books. I think if you go beyond that, that's 10 years later. You don't really know what the world's going to be like in 10 years. You've got to say, well, maybe in your second set of books, you start thinking about the next 3 or 4 years. And you think, okay, now this character can do this and can do that. And luckily in Alana Max, we have 3 series that underpin the list. But they are hard in the sense that from a marketing point of view, you've got to find ways to talk to 3 different audiences in a way that they've become accustomed to, try to give them something new that doesn't break out what they expect.
So 3 different audiences is the kids, the parents, and who else?
Well, no, you've got very, very young children.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, yeah.
And then you've got ones who are just learning how to read,
right.
And you've got ones who can read on their own. Plus,
so three age target groups.
Yeah.
You've got their parents and their adults who are with them that you have to satisfy. And then you've got a whole team of librarians, reviewers, people that actually recommend this book. I don't know about you, Dapo, but here in the UK, the review recommendation doesn't lead to as many sales as it does in the US.
Coverage, yeah.
In the US, someone says, read this book,
It's hard to gauge that, if I'm going to be honest with you. It's difficult to gauge it. I think it's a twofold thing. With a lot of the people that review the books that reviewed Look Up, we have a good relationship with them, So like they'll do a review, we'll take their review and we'll boost it, like we'll share it everywhere. Yeah. You know what I mean? So like that, I found that works really, really well. Like I'm on Instagram especially, I'm talking to the same circle of reviewers all the time, and it's this weird thing that organically happens where like every picture of Look Up they pick up and they share, and it's an ongoing organic thing that I feed and they feed back, and it's a beautiful loop. Mm-hmm. So it amplifies any reviews that they do of the book, and I share all the reviews. I've said to tag me in every review, and I share them all, and I'm on top of that. It's tiring, but I'm on top of that, and it's produced this wonderful kind of organic word of mouth machine for Look Up. And it's not the we get like the Guardian and the big reviews. That's great, but it's the little reviewers that I think really pull this thing together. Like, so yeah.
And often that's a good way to get into books. Actually, is becoming a blogger reviewer, and you get to know people and they appreciate your reviews. So people looking into the industry might do that as a starting point.
Yeah. And I don't wait for reviewers to review Look Up. I actually go out to find, because my big thing at some point during lockdown, the first lockdown, was I was trying to find, round one, I was trying to find black book reviewers, like, because there aren't that many. Like, and there just aren't that many black book vloggers, book bloggers. There aren't that many. So like I started trying to find them, and when I learned about how indie bookshops work, for example, as well, I'm like, okay, there needs to be more. We need to make it easier as authors and illustrators for people to find indie bookshops with our books and other people's books. So these were things that I have this habit, I take on everything. So these were things that I started to kind of take on as well, to try and set up little lists. I love setting up little lists on Twitter, little threads that have all these indie bookshops. You do it too. I've seen you do it, Sarah, as well. Like indie bookshop lists, bloggers lists, just lists that help people get found and help people find these things specifically, and taking an interest in how book blogging works. what obstacles you'd have to face if you were starting up as a small I'm working with, and get them to send you copies of our book, because I want to see you flourish. I want to see you rise up and do this thing, you know? So it's really helped. It's really, really helped. And it hasn't cost me anything, and it hasn't cost the publishers anything. If anything, there's stuff to be gained all around, you know?
Oops, got for a bit of glitching here. Oh, it's very bright in my room. I just have a few people sort of need to ask, take some questions. Somebody was saying, Sarah was saying, would you suggest it's good always to keep your rights to any original characters or storylines? What would you recommend for that?
100%. If you can keep the rights, keep the rights. Like, if you can keep the rights, keep the rights. I mean, I produce, Ken was talking about, you know, wanting to have diversified earlier in terms of creating other avenues for revenue to come in. And I feel like I did that because this is what I was already doing before we actually started working in publishing. I was creating prints of my own work. I was a customer, I had an online shop, I had things going. So the minute Rocket came out and, you know, she became this popular character, I just created prints of my artwork of her. And that's really, really helped me commercially, you know.
Have you had a problem with people ripping off at all and copying?
Oh, I've had people, not so much Rocket, but some other designs of mine, because Rocket was difficult for people to rip off. She's so, you know, she's so well linked to the book that's out there, so you'd get caught. Whereas some other characters that I illustrated, some people, an American company, I don't know, this weird t-shirt company, they ripped off the design and they put it across all this different merchandise. And that's another great thing about having an agent. She shut it down.
Good.
Like, she shut it all the way down. Like, she shut it all the way down. I just sent her all the links I could find, and she just sent them a cease and desist and shut it all the way down.
Brilliant. Oh, that's really good. What do you do, Ken, when you don't? Do you have an agent to do that for you, or does it?
No, I don't have an agent to do it. And actually, I went through a period where my style started being replicated everywhere.
Yeah.
And and it was happening everywhere. And my publisher at the time, David Bennett, was like, "Have you seen this?" And I was like, "Oh, that doesn't look like mine." He's like, "No, it's not yours." Out and taking the way you do stuff, and they're telling you to this, and look, it's selling. You know, and it was up to him to do it. So
that's a harder thing to. Yeah, I think that's a harder thing to come up against, because, I mean, we my friends talk about this all the time with me. You know, my friend, what would you do if, you know, somebody started doing it in your? I'm like, well, then I'd have to come up with another thing. Like, I'd have to innovate. I'd have to keep pushing, you know, to come up with something else, because they can duplicate your style that you've already done, but they can't duplicate what you're going to do. Well, exactly. So, you know, that was my thing.
Case in point, our two books have girls, space, but they have totally different directions.
Oh, yeah.
Had we started on the same day, they'd still be very totally different books. And I think there's space for it all. But, I mean, there was a time when I was doing vehicle books, and then all of a sudden there were more vehicle books coming up.
Yeah.
And they were like, "We never did a race car, did we?" I think you start getting all that stuff, and it gets a bit annoying.
Yeah. It's a competitive industry in that sense, and I think that that's going to happen. Like, if you're onto something good, it's only a matter of time before, you know, somebody else comes along and does, or many other people come and do the same thing. You know, and that's why you have to find that balance between, again, just pushing for the right reasons, trying to find new stories to tell, and, you know, new ways to tell the stories, and also just relaxing and understanding that, you know what, this is going to happen. It's cool. Like, not putting too much pressure on yourself to constantly innovate, because that can be a headache as well. But yeah,
you do sort of see themed covers that kind of come out, and you'll have, you know, 6 books in the shop that all sort of look the same, and you think, oh, okay. What do you guys do when you have covers, when you work on covers with designers? I mean, do you get full control, Ken, when you do your own covers?
Not always. Sometimes I'm always, because I know what it's like to design and to be told what to design, you know, how annoying that can be.
Yeah.
I tend to say from the beginning, right, I can design the cover for you. If you want to do it and you want my input, let me know. If you want my input, if you don't want my input, let me know. So I'm happy to just let it do that. Yeah, that's how it is. But sometimes, you know, they'll say, we want to put this on the cover, and you think, that's not very good. So I'll take it on my own bat and say, right, okay, here's yours. Here's an alternative in case you think it'll work. And I'll just leave it alone. But I try to get that conversation out first, because I think it's better when everyone knows what the playing field looks like.
So you give them, you keep it clear from the beginning. Also, you make sure that you have an alternative idea. That's having the alternative really helps.
If I have one, the thing is, what I've learned is that most of the publishing companies publish things in a certain way. They have a certain look. They understand what they want to achieve out of it. So when you let them design the cover, you've got to let them take it as far as possible and see if it works. They often, the bigger ones are testing the covers as well. So, it's not like they decide one day and it gets printed the next day. It's still a process that you go through. So if I can be involved in it, great. If I can't be involved in it, well, okay, then I can't be involved in it. But then I do make sure that those questions are asked.
Okay.
See, we're different in that respect because, and again, I've only got a few covers under my belt. So I'm very much, I want to be involved in the cover. I wish we had more say in the cover process as illustrators. I really do. I think we should have more say. I hate the amount of input that the marketing teams tend to have that tends to override what we think would make a good cover.
And the bookshops, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Right. The bookshops to an extent I can live with because they see, how people engage and interact with covers. I can live with that, right? I can take on that recommendation because it's often a very critical one. But I've had some wild stuff said from marketing teams and I'm just sitting here like, no, I don't agree with that. And again, it becomes, it starts to stray into this personal realm. I'm fortunate though, in that I've had some really, really great designers that I'm working with when it comes to covers, and they have trusted me. We had an incident with the Lookup cover as well, where the initial cover that they had pitched for us to do, I hated it. I absolutely hated it. I thought it was terrible. I didn't think it did the book any justice, and I was the only one that was being very vocal about this. Everybody else was like, well, just trust the process. And I was like, no, I've seen books like Lookup, character-driven books like Lookup. What's the biggest thing on that front cover? It's the character, right? So in the initial cover that they pitched, Rocket was the second smallest thing on the cover, right? And I'm like, that doesn't add up.
Wow.
So,
okay.
Right. So the idea that they were going for was that they didn't want to be too loud about it. They wanted to be subtle about it. I'm like, well, it's our first book. Let's not be subtle. Let's be loud. Because we're fighting on that bookshelf for space, right? So let's be loud. So then I sent in, this was crazy. So we had an agent that was sitting in for Sally Ann at the time. And, she was on maternity leave. So I came to him with my issue and he was very much like, trust the publisher, trust the publisher. And I was like, okay, great. No. I asked Nathan about it. Nathan was very much the same. And I understood both of their perspectives because they didn't want to rock the boat. Mm-hmm. But it was a gut feeling that was this strong. So I drew up another cover and I put it to the publisher and explained the reason why I think it's the better cover. Our designer went away and did her thing. And she managed to, the cover that we have for Lookup, that Rocket, that size, that was all me.
Okay.
The background, that was all Monica. She managed to, bring out the best version and then boom, cover. Yeah. And the cover now is somewhat of a classic and instantly recognizable cover, So I had to stick to my guns. I had to be, and this is something that I'm becoming less less anxious over, being the most vocal or being the only vocal person at a given time, because you're the only vocal person and everyone else has been quiet doesn't mean that what you're saying is wrong.
No.
And it took me a while because that's an easy way for you to shut up, because you start thinking, oh, am I being too loud? It took me a while to get that. So I was very vocal. We got the cover that we have now and it works. Second book cover for Cleanup, I sent the first design in and they took it. Okay. And that was a sign of trust. And the Cleanup cover, I love the cover. I love how it's come out. Both books work really well side by side. Currently, I think, you might know Jet Purdy. He works at Bloomsbury at the moment. So Jet's the designer for the Space Detectives book that I worked on. And I have to say, it is one of the most pleasurable experiences that I've had working on a book cover with somebody. He's completely trusting, completely got the vision. He got it straight away. And as a result, I can show you the cover. The cover is absolutely gorgeous. I can share my screen if that's okay.
Let's have a look.
All right.
See what you guys
the cover. There we go. I should be able to share this. Yeah. So this is the cover. Can you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like this isn't the full wraparound. This is because it's a wraparound cover, but this isn't the full wraparound. This is the front cover, but it just came out really, really well. All the type and everything is jet. The placement, yeah, he trusted me, and we worked really well together. And I really look forward to working with him on more stuff in the future. Yeah.
Somebody in the questions was asking if you guys pitch to have your books developed as animated show for kids. But that's not really up to us, is it? Or do you guys go there?
Well, our agency.
If it's in your plan, I mean, then you can pitch it. But otherwise, they tend to find it, or it's open, really, isn't it?
Yeah, if it's in your plan and if you have the right connections, you can definitely pitch it. Our agency is that kind of agency. They have, because it's a multi-talent agency, I call that. They've got like a film arm, TV, radio, everything. So they automatically did that. Like they just went out, took the book and took it to their books to screen, I think, arm or whatever, and they pitched it. And we've been optioned for an animated lookup series. I've seen the first few, bits of footage, and it's really, really good. And it's just, I learned again. I'm still learning. I'm learning so much about that. And I learned that because something gets optioned doesn't mean it's guaranteed to be made. Yeah. So it's still, very much fingers crossed. You know.
You have to.
Television is changes. Things change quickly. I went through a stage with the vehicle books. I actually designed the way I illustrate things to be animated because that's what was always in my mind.
Yeah.
And then I had a chance I was approached by the big guns back in the noughties, Disney, and they were like, let's do this, and it was all great.
Yeah.
The person in charge of the project went to work somewhere else. The new person came in, and it just ended. That was it. That was the end of that. And if television happens, you kind of think, oh my God, And so you have to always delay your kind of expectations a little bit when you're dealing with it. Because
Joe McCrum says 80% of options are never realized.
it just changes, Or you've got it nowadays, of course, if you have the time and you want to take the learning curve, you can just animate yourself, put it on and see it. Maybe that's how people get to see whether something might work.
What your work would look like.
Yeah. At the time.
Yeah. I recently did a stint as a development character designer on projects with Warner Brothers. And that was interesting. And everything about this at the moment, my journey at the moment is about learning everything. Like, I just want to learn everything. I want to be a showrunner one day. I want to have my own book series that gets made into an animated series. That's my ambition. And I want to showrun as much as I want to write and illustrate the book. I also want to showrun the cartoon. So it makes sense for me to know how all of these things work, as much as I can. So that's part of the journey now.
Mm.
I was wondering, Kent, I was going to ask you for your sketchbooks, and we just have a few minutes left, but you can show us. I just remembered.
I've got a few minutes.
Yeah.
I've got,
art in there.
So this is my sketchbook for this year, which is happily full. And this year I started to work with Scoop Magazine, doing lots of spread, comic strip stories over a spread.
Oh, cool.
And the process is basically we kind of do... this is the sketch for one of them.
Oh, wow. I wonder if we can go to full screen on you. Huh?
Yeah, we can do that. If I can show you one page, there's another page. And each one of these kind of goes, and they wanted me to look at African, various people. This one is Patrice Lumumba. And this story didn't go ahead because even though I finished the illustration and everything, this story is so dark that, like you said, But I've just done one for John Blank. One of the few black people in the Tudor sort of court with Henry VIII, whose claim to fame in the history books is that he's on this tapestry, this big tapestry but also his other claim to fame is that he got a pay rise. That's all people know about him. They don't know anything else about it except that he got a pay rise, and this is how it sort of come out at the moment.
Oh wow!
It's a lovely one because I've done it like But the whole thing about sketching it has been great. You sketch. It goes away, you get the comments, you resketch, go back, and then hopefully you start doing color. I like to spend as much time sketching and practicing, and then try and do the artwork once if possible, rather than have to keep going back to final artwork. I'm sure that's the same for you.
Yeah, that makes sense. Oh, I think Joe's starting to bring it to a close. Sorry we haven't got to show you guys. Go follow these people on Instagram and Twitter, and Dapo's going to have the BBC letter on Twitter. Ken's got some awesome things he's been showing off on Instagram.
Yeah.
And also Pictures Mean Business, Name the Translator. Look them all up. shout out for what was it? Vivian was shouting out for Verna Wilkins.
Verna Wilkins. Verna Wilkins, the hero.
Oh yay!
Oh, Verna's amazing.
Verna is amazing.
That's roundup. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, guys. That was so fascinating. You could have actually gone on forever, I think, but obviously you've got deadlines, the pair of you. And I really appreciated just how much honesty there was in that discussion. And transparency, I think only by sharing details can people be kind of armed and get the best deals for themselves. And so I'm really grateful for that. So thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks.
No worries. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Yeah.
Can I say thank you to the audience as well for being here today and asking lots of questions or commenting in the crowd. Lovely to see some old faces, Patrice and Vivian. It's great to see you there. And thank you very much for events organizer Sophia Jackson as well for making this happen today.
Thank you, Sophia.
And I'd like to remind you that on the 19th of November, we're going to be visited by the Good Ship illustrator. So it's going to be one of our Feel Good Friday sessions. So you can do some live drawing along with the illustration team. I'll be illustrating even me, who is absolutely rubbish, but I'll give it a go anyway, because it's all about, engaging artistically and creatively at a very kind of strange time for everybody. So lots of positivity around that. And then this week we have sweary scientist Emma Byrne doing a session, and poets Roger Rogerson, Amina Jamar, Keith Jarrett. And then we have regional member meetings that you can all join in on Zoom. We've got Putney, Tufnell Park and Monmouth, who have a special guest this week, the agent Brew Doherty. That's on Friday. She doesn't represent any children's writers, but if you do adult work, come in, ask her a few questions. All our events are listed on the website, so just go SOA events. Recordings will be on our Vimeo channel as well. Just Google Society of Authors Vimeo channel, it all comes up. And our festival hashtag, if you want to go over to Twitter now, is hashtag SOA at home, AT home. And yeah, if you're not a member of CWIG, join up, drop me a line, joemccrum@societyofauthors.org. And it was really good having you today. Thank you guys again. I am finally finished rambling now.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks,
And I'll say goodbye to everybody.
Bye.
Sarah, you might have the controls.
Do I?
You have the controls. You have to eject everyone.
I have no idea how to do that.
Kick us out. Brilliant. Or you can just leave.